The late afternoon sun streamed through La Renaissance as Emma Rodriguez served Manhattan's elite, her worn shoes hiding a brilliant secret. Today, an arrogant billionaire would try to humiliate her in 5 languages. He had no idea she spoke 7 fluently, and her response would change both their lives forever. Welcome to our channel Truth Turn Stories, where real-life truths turn into powerful lessons. If this story speaks to you, subscribe and support the journey. The late afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of La Renaissance, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, casting golden light across white linen tablecloths and crystal glassware that sparkled like diamonds. Emma Rodriguez moved gracefully between the tables, her worn but polished shoes silent against the marble floor, her smile warm and genuine, despite the ache in her feet from a double shift. She had learned long ago that kindness costs nothing, and in a place where most customers spent more on a single meal than she earned in a week, her gentle spirit was the one luxury she could offer freely. Today would test that spirit in ways she never imagined, but it would also reveal a strength she didn't know she possessed, and teach a lesson that would ripple far beyond these elegant walls. Emma had been working at La Renaissance for 3 years, saving every possible dollar to finish her linguistics degree at night school. Her mother's medical bills had forced her to put her dreams on hold, but she never complained, never let bitterness creep into her heart. Instead, she studied during her breaks, carried pocket-sized language books in her apron, and practiced pronunciation while setting tables in the quiet morning hours before the restaurant opened. The other servers knew her as the girl who could switch effortlessly between English and Spanish with the kitchen staff, who always had a kind word for the dishwashers, who stayed late to help the new hires learn the complicated French menu. She was 24 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, eyes that still held hope despite hardship, and hands that worked tirelessly without ever losing their gentleness. The dinner rush was beginning when Marcus Wellington III walked through the door, and Emma felt the atmosphere shift immediately. She recognized him from the society pages her manager kept in the back office, a real estate mogul worth billions, known as much for his ruthless business deals as for his charitable donations that seemed designed more for tax breaks than genuine compassion. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a suit that cost more than Emma's annual salary, with the kind of confident stride that came from never being told no, never facing a closed door, never wondering if he could afford tomorrow. 2 business associates followed him, laughing at something he'd said, and the maitre d' rushed forward with an obsequiousness that made Emma's stomach turn slightly. She watched as they were seated at table 7, right in her section, and she took a deep breath, smoothing her apron and reminding herself that everyone deserved kindness, even those who seemed to need it least. She approached the table with her usual warmth, her smile genuine as she greeted them and presented the menus. Marcus barely glanced at her, his eyes scanning the wine list with the bored expression of someone who had tasted the finest vintages in the world and found them all equally mundane. His companions were more polite, nodding at Emma with brief acknowledgement, but Marcus began speaking immediately in rapid French, his tone dripping with condescension as he gestured dismissively toward Emma. She understood every word perfectly, but she kept her expression neutral, her smile steady. He was telling his colleagues that the service here had clearly declined, that they were being waited on by someone who probably couldn't even pronounce half the dishes on the menu, that it was amusing how these restaurants hired people who clearly didn't belong in such refined establishments. His friends shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Emma with apologetic eyes, but Marcus continued, switching to Italian now, describing her as the help who surely had no education, no refinement, no understanding of the world beyond taking orders and carrying plates. Emma's heart pounded, but not with shame or anger. Instead, she felt a strange calm settle over her, a clarity she hadn't experienced before. She had faced prejudice before, had been underestimated countless times, but something about this moment felt different, felt significant. She thought of her mother, who had cleaned houses to put food on the table, and taught Emma that dignity wasn't determined by your job title, but by how you treated others. She thought of her late father, a university professor in Columbia, who had driven a taxi in New York to support his family and never once complained about the doctorate gathering dust in their small apartment. She thought of all the nights she'd studied by lamplight, all the languages she'd learned not for show, but because she loved the beauty of human communication, the bridge that words could build between souls. And she made a decision that would change everything. As Marcus finished his performance in Italian and switched to German, clearly enjoying his linguistic exhibition at Emma's expense, she remained perfectly still, her notepad ready, her expression serene. When he finally paused, looking at her with barely concealed amusement and asking in heavily accented English if she had gotten all that, or if he needed to speak more slowly, Emma met his eyes directly. The transformation in her demeanor was subtle but powerful. Her spine straightened slightly, not with defiance but with quiet confidence, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and melodious, carrying just far enough for nearby tables to turn their heads slightly. She addressed him in flawless, elegant French, with the refined Parisian accent of someone who had studied the language seriously, thanking him for his patience and assuring him that she had indeed understood every word of his order, though he hadn't actually placed one yet. She paused, letting that sink in, then smoothly transitioned into Italian, commenting that while his command of the language was admirable, she had noticed a small grammatical error in his earlier statement, which she politely corrected with such grace that it sounded like a compliment, rather than a critique. The color drained from Marcus's face as understanding dawned. His colleague's eyes widened, and one of them actually smiled, a genuine expression of surprised delight. But Emma wasn't finished. She continued in German, this time with the precise diction of a scholar, suggesting several wine pairings that would complement the dishes she had heard him mention, offering insights into the vineyard regions and harvest years with the knowledge of someone who had studied, not just tasted. Then, just to make her point crystal clear, she switched to Portuguese, then Mandarin, then back to English, explaining that she was currently working on her master's degree in linguistics, specializing in Romance languages and their cultural contexts, and that she would be happy to discuss the etymology of any menu items he found confusing. The entire exchange lasted perhaps 90 seconds, but in that minute and a half, the power dynamic in that corner of the restaurant shifted completely. Marcus Wellington III, a man accustomed to dominance in every room he entered, sat speechless. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. His colleagues were grinning now, one of them shaking his head in obvious admiration. Emma maintained her professional composure, but inside, her heart soared, not with pride or vengeance, but with the simple satisfaction of having stood up for herself with grace rather than anger. She had not raised her voice, had not been rude, had not stooped to his level of attempting to humiliate. Instead, she had revealed the truth he had been too arrogant to imagine, that beneath her server's uniform beat the heart of a scholar, that behind her humble circumstances lived a brilliant mind, that his assumptions about her worth had been as foolish as they were cruel. The silence stretched for a moment longer, and Emma could see something shifting in Marcus's expression. The smug superiority melting away, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. What happened next surprised everyone, including Emma herself. Marcus set down his menu slowly, his hands trembling slightly, and looked at Emma with eyes that had lost their mocking gleam. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter, stripped of its earlier arrogance. He apologized, the words sounding rusty and unfamiliar in his mouth, as if he hadn't used it genuinely in years. He admitted that he had been inexcusably rude, that he had made assumptions based on ignorance and prejudice, and that her grace in responding had shown him a character he clearly lacked. His colleagues watched in stunned silence as this powerful man, this titan of industry known for never backing down, never admitting fault, humbled himself before a waitress in a restaurant full of witnesses. Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, not from the earlier hurt, but from this unexpected moment of human connection, this glimpse of redemption that proved even the hardest hearts could soften when confronted with genuine dignity. The dinner proceeded in a transformed atmosphere. Marcus asked Emma about her studies, listening with what seemed like genuine interest as she shared her passion for languages, her dreams of perhaps teaching one day or working in international relations. He wanted to know about her background, and she told him about her parents, about Colombia, about the journey that had brought her family to New York, and the sacrifices they had made. His colleagues joined the conversation warmly, and Emma found herself laughing with them, discussing everything from the challenges of Mandarin tones to the best neighborhoods in Manhattan for authentic international cuisine. When they ordered, Marcus asked for her recommendations and accepted them without question, and throughout the meal, he treated her with a respect that seemed to grow with each course. Other servers noticed the unusual dynamic, whispering among themselves, and Emma's manager watched from a distance with proud, knowing eyes. As the evening drew to a close and Emma brought the check, Marcus did something that would become the talk of the restaurant for months to come. He handed her an envelope along with his credit card, asking her to open it privately when she had a moment. Inside, she would later discover, was not just a tip that amounted to several months of her salary, but also a handwritten note on his personal stationery. The note explained that he had been deeply moved by her grace and her spirit, and that he wanted to establish a scholarship fund in her name at Columbia University, specifically for working students pursuing degrees in linguistics and international studies. He had included his personal contact information and a request that she allow him to make amends for his earlier behavior by supporting her educational dreams and helping other students like her who worked tirelessly while pursuing knowledge. The note ended with words that Emma would keep forever, a simple sentence that carried profound weight. You taught me more in 5 minutes than I've learned in 50 years of success. Thank you for the gift of humility. But the story didn't end that night. Marcus Wellington III became a changed man, or perhaps more accurately, he began the journey of becoming the man he should have been all along. He reached out to Emma the following week, and with her input and guidance, established the Rodriguez Scholarship for working students, funding full rides for dozens of young people who balanced work and education. He began volunteering his time to mentor students from immigrant families, learning from them as much as teaching them about business and success. He started seeing the people who served him, who cleaned his offices, who made his empire run, really seeing them as full human beings with dreams and struggles and dignity. And he told Emma a story, with her permission, at business conferences and charity events, using his moment of shame as a teaching tool about the dangers of prejudice and the importance of recognizing worth in every person regardless of their circumstances. Emma finished her degree with honors, the scholarship allowing her to quit her second job and focus on her studies while still helping her mother. She went on to become a professor of linguistics at a prestigious university, known for her warmth with students and her special attention to those who worked their way through school. She never forgot where she came from, never lost the grace that had defined that pivotal evening, and she taught her own students that true education wasn't just about accumulating knowledge, but building bridges between people, about using words to heal rather than harm, about standing tall in your own dignity while honoring the dignity of others. She and Marcus maintained a friendship over the years, an unlikely bond built on a foundation of transformation and mutual respect, and he often said that meeting her was the best thing that ever happened to him, worth more than all his billions. The lesson that emerged from that evening in La Renaissance spread far beyond those who witnessed it directly. It became a reminder that we should never judge people by their circumstances, never assume that humility means ignorance, never use our advantages to diminish others. Emma's response to cruelty with grace rather than anger, with confidence rather than shame, showed the transformative power of maintaining dignity in the face of disrespect. Her story proved that true strength isn't loud or aggressive, but quiet and unshakable, rooted in knowledge of one's own worth that no insult can diminish. And Marcus's transformation demonstrated that it's never too late to change, never too late to learn, never too late to become better than you were. In the end, what started as an arrogant billionaire's attempt to humiliate a waitress became a beautiful lesson about the hidden depths in every person, the unexpected teachers who appear in our lives, and the profound truth that kindness, education, and human dignity transcend all languages, all borders, all barriers of wealth and status, creating connections that change not just moments but entire lives, rippling outward in waves of hope and transformation that touch countless souls along the way.